Hello everybody, hope you enjoyed the deck tech. Welcome to round one. So for this match and for the next match, I'm actually doing this after the fact, so we're going to do this through the replay system. But I'll do my best to recount to you why I made the decisions I made as they come up. So we won the die roll, so we would obviously play first. So let's click through here. So looking at this hand, so we have a Veteran Explorer we can do in turn. We're in the blind, so we can definitely start on Veteran Explorer, and we have some removal, plus we've got some card advantage, so I think this is a fine keep. And we can see that our opponent also chooses not to mulligan. So we're going to lead on Verdant Catacombs, and in the blind I'm going to get a Forest here, just because we don't want to play into Wasteland. And if they happen to be playing a Swords to Plowshares deck, then the vets weren't going to be very good anyway, and if they're wasting a Swords to Plowshares on a Veteran Explorer, then they're not wasting it on one of our later creatures, and that is okay. Okay, so we see our opponent plays a Misty Rainforest. And getting Underground Sea, this does smack of Storm. And going into Preordain on the first turn, I'm definitely thinking that I'm going to be up against Storm. So they put 2 cards on top and draw, so that's potentially disastrous for us. But let's keep going. So this is a great draw. So we have a Cabal Therapy. Now, it does potentially ramp them if we want to try to if we do strip things out of their hand. But hopefully we can leverage taking an important piece out of their hand, and that way it will keep us from losing from giving them extra lands, because you have to be very careful about how or when you give Storm the extra mana to mess with. Alright, so let's see what I did. So we're going to play out the Bayou, because now we don't care about having non-basics in play. Okay, so we're going to lead on Thoughtseize. And we're going to name Infernal Tutor, because that is, if we think it's Ant, which most of the time it's Ant, hitting the Infernal Tutor is going to usually mean that they're going to have to spend some time searching for more things to do. Alright, then we're going to go ahead and get our point of damage in. Because it's important to pressure the Storm deck. You want to make sure that you make their ad nauseums worse, and you want to make sure that you're actually clocking them. This is one of the things that, in addition to how fast Storm can be, Nic Fit can sometimes be slow to win, and it gives them time to rebuild even if you are able to strip their resources away. Alright, so we do go ahead and do this. We're going to go ahead and get probably a Swamp and a Forest, I believe is what I did here. They're going to get their island and their swamp, most likely. Alright. Now, what we name here is, so if we look at their hand, right, so they don't have the Infernal Tutor anymore. So they have a lot of mana, so we're not going to be crunching them on, plus we gave them more mana, so mana's not the thing that is going to be a problem. Our hand overall is pretty redundant, although the Abrupt Decay really isn't doing anything, but it's unclear how much we need to protect the Sylvan Library, and so for this one I actually named Ponder. Right, so we'll go ahead and close that out. So we're going to take their Ponder, and knowing that we're probably going to be hit with a Thoughtseize on the next turn. And then we go ahead and play out our Sylvan Library now that we have the mana for it, because we don't really care if they Thoughtseize one of these things. So they top decked a Brainstorm, which is very good. Because along with the fetch land that they have in their hand, this is going to allow them to probably sculpt their hand very easily. And they Brainstorm into another Ponder. Not the best, since they're going to be they're going to seize 2 of the same cards again in that ponder. And if we look here, let's see. And they chose to shuffle their library with this ponder. Alright, and then this is not necessarily a good sign because we see that they're going to start playing out their mana. So they play out a Cabal Ritual, and then they Ad Nauseam with Mana Floating. So we already see they have a Dark Ritual, there's another LED and a Dark Petition, and I believe it's at this point that I give them the benefit of the doubt. They have the Dark Ritual to bring them up to 5 mana plus the LED plus the Dark Petition, so that already puts them they're at Storm 5, so this is Storm 6, 7, 8, and then they're going to be ending with 6 mana after the Dark Petition, because they'll have the 3 plus the 3. So if that's Storm 8, they can get an Infernal Tutor for Storm 9, and then Tendrils for the full 20. So we end up losing game 1. So let's get back in here for the replay for game 2. Alright, so let's talk about how I sideboarded. So if you look on the right hand side of your screen, you can see my sideboard. There are the 1 Crop Rotation, the 3 Veils, the 2 Abrupt Decays, the Oof, the Hymns, the Plague Engineer, the Toxic Deluge, and the Ley Lines. So since they're Ant, we're actually going to be bringing in 13 of our 15 cards. The only cards we don't bring in are the 2 Abrupt Decays, because in this matchup, Abrupt Decay does usually nothing. Alright, so we want to bring in the Crop Rotation because we can use it to get Bojuka Bog, or the Wasteland if we find a particular spot that makes sense to waste them off a color in a protracted game. We have the Veil of Summers to counteract their discard, as well as it also stops their win condition of Tendrils. We want to bring in the Oof because it'll stop their artifact mana. We want to bring in the Hymns to help just crash their hand. Plague Engineer is going to be good against the Empty the Warrens plan. Toxic Deluge, same reason. And then the Ley Lines are going to stop their Past in Flames. So, things that we don't really care about. So the Abrupt Decays and the Assassin's Trophies generally are not doing anything. We can afford to shave our lands a little bit. Karakas is not going to be doing a lot. The white mana is particularly not useful. And they're not going to be playing any kind of legends that we're going to care about. Questing Beast, Titania, and Marin are pretty high up the curve, and especially since we are cutting our Veteran Explorers because we don't want to ramp them, it's harder to get to enough mana unless we get in a really, really long game, in which case most of our threats are going to be able to handle what we need to do. So we're going to cut those threats. Reclamation Sage doesn't really have anything to blow up. If we're already shutting off their artifact mana in other ways, we don't necessarily need to Reclamation Sage an Elite or a Lotus Petal that has been sitting out. That's usually not the way that we're planning on winning. So in any case, so that's what we sideboarded. So let's go ahead and take a look. We're going to be on the play. Alright, so this hand doesn't do anything for at least 2 to 3 turns. We don't have any black mana, and the green mana we do have has Summoning Sickness, so we're going to mulligan this. Alright, this hand we're going to, I believe I kept this one. Let's see. Yes. So if you notice, we put the Hex Drinker on the bottom. At this juncture of the game, the Hex Drinker is the least important piece of what we have going on here. We want to make sure we start with the Leyline in play, and then we're going to hold up Veil of Summer until we can get our second black mana online. And then Green Sun Zenith can always find the Hex Drinker or some other threat later on. we probably want to reserve this Green Sun Zenith for a Collector Oof if we can, if we find a good window. So I'm not going to crack the Verdant Catacombs yet, there's no reason to. It keeps more lands in our deck because land is something we want to hit. So we want to make sure we keep our odds high of picking up those sorts of things. So they're going to lead on a Misty into Underground Sea just like last game. And it's going to be a Ponder, not a Preordain this time. And they're going to shuffle. And then it's off to me. We draw another ley line, not the best. Note, extra ley lines are not necessarily that bad. If you do end up in a long game and you have your Vraska in, you can play out extra ley lines and you can sacrifice them to her ability to gain life and draw cards. So again, we're going to play out a fetch land, but we're not going to crack it. We don't have any reason to yet. I don't think it's valuable. I didn't think it was valuable at this point in time to play the Hymn to Turok, just in case we don't hit useful things, and then we would not be able to hold up Veil of Summer. It's possible that that's wrong, and I was supposed to fire that off there in hindsight. So we'll keep that in mind as we go forward. So they're going to play out a fetch and make no play. It's fine. Alright, so we get a Bayou. That's great. We're developing our mana. At this point, since they're untapped, I was a little hesitant to fire off the Hymn to Turok at this point, just in case they had a Veil of Summer, which is something that we could very easily have anticipated them having. And this is part of why I think the Hymn to Turok might have been useful to fire off when they were tapped out with only the Underground Sea in play. Alright, so we're building up resources to be able to try to stop them, depending on what route they try to go to victory. So just keep playing, so now they have actual green mana in play. There's more disruption if I can get to it. I played this game very cautiously, and I think that it comes back to bite me. Alright, keep the mana coming. So at this point, because I can hold up Veil of Summer, I believe I choose to go for the Collector Oof. Our opponent had a Chain of Vapor here. And then they also had an Echoing Truth for the ley line. So that's a little unfortunate because now they have a window. If I didn't have the Veil of Summer, they would potentially be able to try to maneuver here. But instead, we get to untap, play out our land, and we go ahead and redeploy the Collector Oof. And they actually have another Echoing Truth that they've found. So once again, they're trying to buy themselves a turn. And at this point, I don't have any disruptive pieces in play. I'm just redeploying that out. So once again, Oof onto the battlefield. And now I'm going to therapy them to try to see if I can strip them of a way to win the game. They actually let me do it, so they didn't have a Veil of Summer here. So at this point they have Ritual, Chain, Infernal Tutor, and Past in Flames. And I think here, I want to say I took Chain of Vapor. Oh, sorry, I named Tendrils of Agony because I didn't know their hand, which they didn't have. And here's another spot where I know the things in their hand. I very easily since I know they don't have a Veil of Summer, it's entirely possible that I was supposed to do Hymn to Turok here. Because they might bounce my Collector Oof in response to the Hymn, in which case getting any two of these three is very powerful. But instead I wait. So here they try to tap for something, and they go to retap. And so this ends up being ad nauseum. So I go ahead and I let them play this out. Alright, so they go that far and then they stop. So they go to Thoughtseize me here, at which point I will fire off the Veil of Summer. They go ahead and play out their LED and a Ponder. Oh, I think they also played out, what, Polluted Delta? Yeah. Just trying to keep up with the revealed zone. So they shuffle with Ponder. They play out the Lotus Petal that they found. Now, obviously, see, now they can't go off because those can't be activated, and trying to kill me this turn because I have the Hexproof is not useful anyway. Alright. So at this point, I hymn them, and I discard their Past in Flames and their Infernal Tutor, or one of their Infernal Tutors. Now at this point, I make the wrong choice, I believe, because I discard their Chain of Vapor, and I'm pretty sure what I was supposed to do was I was actually supposed to get rid of their Infernal Tutor. Because the next turn, they're going to actually be able to Natural Tendrils me. So, right, so we keep pressuring them, like I talked about, just always with the attacks when you can. So they preordain. Then they brainstorm. So at this point, I go ahead and I get the Bojuka Bog, just so that their Cabal Ritual doesn't give them a ton of mana, but it's going to end up not mattering. So they find another Dark Ritual, they play their last Cabal Ritual, or sorry, they find another Cabal Ritual. And at this point, they have the Infernal Tutor left. So if I had taken this Infernal Tutor, they would have had to try to dig for that with all of their cantrips. So I end up losing this one. So I think there was a few decision points during this game that could have led to a victory, and then who knows what Game 3 would have had. All right, well, thanks for watching, and hope you watch the next video.